The real ones don't walk in shouting. They walk in, and the truth walks with them. That's what makes the room shift. Everyone's buzzing about you, not because you chased the spotlight, but because you stood in it when no one else would. You didn't just speak truth, you protected it. You didn't just survive the storm, you covered others while the winds were ripping through you. And now, people don't just respect you, they feel you. You became the one others point to and say, "That's how you do it." But this wasn't about popularity. It never was. What made the power structure panic wasn't your voice alone. It was what your voice started. It was how your strength gave others permission to stop hiding. You moved first, and others followed. That's what they fear most. Not you as an individual, but what you ignite in the collective. And let's be clear, this message isn't for the doubters. This is for the ones who were built for truth. The ones who felt alone while carrying the weight of knowing. The ones who thought they were just surviving, not realizing the universe was training them for something way louder than survival. For something that couldn't be erased. Before we go deeper, hit like and subscribe. This ain't about numbers, it's about signal. Every click tells the algorithm, there's more chosen ones out there, wake them up. Let's spread this frequency the way truth deserves to move. Fast and undeniable. Now listen closely. You didn't ask to be chosen. You were. Not by men, not by systems, but by the universe itself. And when you carry that kind of power, your life doesn't play out like everyone else's. Your pain has purpose. Your silence had seasons. Your rise, inevitable. And now that you've stepped into it, the ones who once tried to mock you can't even look you in the eye. They weren't fighting you. They were fighting the universe that walks behind you. That's what they never understood. You weren't outnumbered. You were backed. They thought they could isolate you, break your spirit, make you doubt your light. And truthfully, some of you did doubt. Some of you believed the lies, questioned your role, your path, your worth. That ends right now. You're not just a survivor. You're the blueprint for the ones still hiding, the protector for the ones still getting hunted, the truth teller for the ones still being lied to. And that light you carry, it doesn't flicker anymore. It burns, quietly, fiercely, non-stop. Your existence haunts those who depend on illusions. Your presence is a mirror they can't unsee. You're walking proof that real can't be copied and solid don't fold. So hold your head high, not in ego, but in clarity. You know what you are. And if you ever forget, just listen to how they speak when you walk away. The streets know. The real ones see it. And your enemies? They're praying you don't realize how far your power really reaches. But it's too late. You're activated now, and there's no folding in your blood. So if you're really who you say you are, the one who speaks truth, stands guard, and never folds, then don't just watch this, feel this. Drop the number 77 in the comments if you know the streets are starting to whisper your name for a reason, and don't move yet. If this message found you, it means there's more you're meant to hear. The ones who were truly chosen, they stay locked in. They feel the pull. Now, let's break it down, piece by piece. Let's get into it. Number 1. You walk in, and the lie stops breathing. Truth doesn't shout, it exposes. And when the chosen ones show up, illusions suffocate. You ever notice how they shift the second you step in the room? That fake smile gets tight. Their words get slower, more calculated. Like they suddenly remember the script, but forget how to act it. Because when you walk in, they're not looking at just a person. They're looking at a walking contradiction to every mask they've ever worn. That's the weight you carry. That's the power of being chosen. They hate you for what you see, because you don't even have to say a word. Your presence alone drags out the lies they buried under charm, titles, and fake empathy. They've built entire realities on control, deception, performance. And then you showed up, and the performance cracked. You didn't ask to be this. You didn't audition. But the universe picked you because you couldn't be fooled. While others were chasing popularity, you were chasing patterns. While others were impressed, you were observing. While they were falling in line, you were reading the angles. You're not just the truth teller. You're the illusion breaker. And they felt that before they understood it. They tried to label you too intense, too serious, too much. Because your energy made the lies start to unravel. That's the game. Water down the ones who see too much. But what they don't realize is, the chosen ones aren't here to fit in. We're here to flip the system. See, some of you doubted yourselves for years, thought maybe you were the problem, felt the tension in rooms you didn't belong in, and took it personal. But let me say it straight. That resistance you felt wasn't rejection. It was revelation. You were feeling their fear. You were triggering their false sense of control. You were the glitch in their perfect little setup. And the real reason they couldn't stand you. Because the universe was starting to stand with you. When the universe aligns behind the chosen, nothing stays hidden. People start showing who they really are. Their kindness turns to control. Their support starts to feel like sabotage. The mask slips, the room gets tight, and suddenly everyone's energy gets exposed. Not because you were being aggressive, but because you were being true. That's all it takes. Because when a chosen one walks in, aligned, the lie stops breathing. And that scares them more than anything. Not just your sight, but your refusal to play dumb about what you see. You didn't play along. You didn't nod and smile. You didn't accept comfort at the cost of clarity. You called it out, quietly or loudly, with words or with actions, but you did not bend. And they felt that. So, here's where we go deeper. This is for the ones who've ever asked themselves, why do they react like that around me? Why do I feel like I'm always the target? Why can't I just let things go like everyone else? Let me answer it like this. Because you were never meant to blend in with the lie. You were designed to bring friction to the fake. Your energy wasn't built for peace with what's false. You don't walk into rooms and read the vibe. You become the vibe check. And that's why they fear you. You weren't breaking peace. You were breaking performance. You weren't the threat. You were just the truth that showed up early. Now, some of you have spent too long apologizing for that, for seeing too much, for being too sensitive, for being too aware. But stop letting the enemy trick you into doubting your design. Stop shrinking the signal. Stop softening your energy just so liars can keep their stories straight. You are not the villain. You're the one they can't manipulate. And that makes you dangerous to them. Because what happens when enough chosen ones stop second-guessing what they know? What happens when you walk in knowing that you are the reason their scripts fall apart? When you realize they never hated you, they feared the mirror you held up? See, they weren't fighting you. They were fighting the truth, trying to work through you. They were fighting the alignment. They picked a war with the system behind the scenes, the universal one, the one that doesn't miss. So let that sink in. They thought they were just playing games with you. They didn't realize they were challenging the very force that chose you. And for those who still doubt, still play small, still wonder if they made this all up, let me ask you this. How many people can walk into a room and shift the energy without saying a word? How many can look someone in the eyes and see through years of layered lies? How many can hear the tremble in a calm voice and know something's being hidden? That's not imagination. That's activation. So stop playing innocent like you don't know who you are. You do. They called you crazy because they couldn't call you controlled. They isolated you because they couldn't manipulate you in a crowd. They whispered about you because they didn't want to speak your name in full light. But that didn't stop anything. If anything, it confirmed everything. You're not here to keep the peace. You're here to reset the frequency. And when the lie stops breathing, something real finally gets a chance to live. So next time the room shifts when you walk in, smile. That's not discomfort. That's confirmation. They feel it. They all feel it. Because the chosen ones are never ignored, only feared, only watched. Only talked about when they're gone, but studied while they're present. And now, they know. You don't fold. You don't flinch. You see through everything, and they'll never be able to wear that mask around you again. Number 2. Your silence makes the loud ones stutter. When the chosen ones stop talking, the liars start sweating. You ever notice how quiet you get in certain rooms? Not because you don't know what to say, but because you already see too much. Your silence is not weakness. It's not fear. It's calculation. It's power being held back like a loaded chamber. The reason they rush to change the subject. The reason they avoid eye contact when you're around. The reason they talk over you before you even say a word. It's because they know your silence hits harder than their entire performance. See, some people use noise to control a space. They ramble, they dominate, they confuse. But when you're chosen, your quiet is strategy. You don't have to play their game. You let the energy tell you everything. You don't chase attention because your presence already commands it. That's what rattles them. They can sense that you're not reacting the way they want you to. You're not triggered. You're not fooled. You're not buying into the setup. You're still. And that stillness? It's pressure. Real pressure. It makes them fumble their words and trip over their own narratives. You're not out here yelling to be heard, because you already know your energy does the talking. The truth doesn't need a mic. It just needs the right carrier. And when you're chosen, you carry it without even trying. You've sat in rooms where truth would have gotten you exiled, where silence was the currency for staying safe, and you still found ways to disrupt the lie, without saying much at all. A glance, a pause, a subtle shift in energy. You didn't need to argue. You let their own guilt echo in the silence you left hanging. That's the power they don't want to admit. Because deep down, they know, the minute you choose to speak, the illusion dies, the game ends, the performance cracks, and that's why they scramble to control the narrative before you even open your mouth. They'd rather drown the room in noise than risk letting one line of your truth land. But here's what you might not fully realize yet. Your refusal to play along is rebellion in its purest form. It's a quiet revolution. It's resistance wrapped in stillness. It's why they feel exposed even when you haven't said a word. Because silence is not the absence of power. It's the concentration of it. And for the chosen ones, your silence holds weight. It's a pause that demands reflection. It makes people look inward when they'd rather look away. You become a walking mirror, and most of them ain't ready to see their real face. So instead, they paint you as the problem. They'll say you're cold, distant, antisocial. But what they really mean is, I can't manipulate them like I do everyone else. I can't read them, can't twist them, can't break them. They make me feel seen, and I don't want to be. So stop questioning the way you move. Stop wondering why your silence feels so heavy to them. It's supposed to. You're not built to entertain the lie. You're built to pressure it until it cracks. They know what you are, even if you haven't fully stepped into it yet. And let's not forget this. When the universe chooses you, it doesn't just give you sight. It gives you timing, strategy, instinct. It knows when to make you loud and when to make you silent, when to strike and when to let the silence do the work. They thought they could handle your truth, but the real reason they fear you is because they can't handle your silence. That space between your words is where their false power crumbles. That's where they realize you're not confused. You're just collecting data. So next time someone tries to poke at you for being quiet, let them. Let them guess. Let them perform. Let them talk in circles. Because by the time you speak, it'll be too late. The truth will already be circling them. You don't need noise to be powerful. You don't need to prove anything, because your silence makes the loud ones stutter and the fake ones sweat. And that's the mark of a real one. Number 3, you didn't stir the water. You are the current. Real power doesn't ask for attention. It shifts the entire atmosphere just by showing up. You weren't trying to cause a scene. You weren't trying to shake the system. But when you walked in, everything moved. The conversations bent. The energy flipped. The masks got tight. Because you didn't bring chaos. You brought clarity. And in a world that thrives off distortion, your presence is a tidal force they can't hold back. They love to say, you're too much. But what they really mean is, I felt something shift, and I wasn't ready. I couldn't keep lying to myself once you showed up. You moved something in me, and I didn't give you permission. That's the truth, isn't it? You didn't ask to be the wave. You just are. The real ones never try to shake things up. It just happens when they step into their alignment. And the ones who spent their lives building power off lies, they feel it first, not in logic, in their body, in the tension, in the way their voice cracks when you're around. Because the truth you carry doesn't just speak, it surrounds. You don't need a platform to shift people. You walk in, and the lies start to crumble on their own. That's the effect of clarity. It doesn't yell, it reveals. It pulls masks off without needing to touch a single thread. And for people addicted to pretending, that's more violent than any argument. You've had people say you changed the moment you entered their life. That's not ego, that's energy. You didn't manipulate, you didn't demand, you just stood firm, and the illusion couldn't hold. And yeah, some people resist it. They act like they're unaffected. They laugh it off, change the subject, distance themselves from you. But deep down, they feel different. They walk away thinking differently. And that's how you know. The wave hit. They won't admit it, but they're different now. And they'll never go back to how they were before you showed up. Because that's what a chosen one does. You leave echoes, you move the unseen, you disturb what they thought was safe. But here's where I'm talking directly to you now. The one who's still unsure about what you carry. Stop saying you're just being real. Stop pretending you're not that powerful. Stop brushing off your presence like it's a coincidence. You're not just real, you're activated. There's a reason people either cling to you or run from you. There's a reason you're either deeply respected or completely misunderstood. That's not life, that's the wave effect. And it's not random, it's by design. You were sent to disrupt anything that hides behind pretty lies and polished images. You were born to bring clarity where confusion was currency. You're not optional. You're not background noise. You're the current that rewrites everything in your path. Some people might try to treat you like a phase, something that'll pass, a moment. But you're not a moment. You're momentum. You don't fade. You build. And for those who felt your presence and walked away like it didn't matter, watch closely. Their path starts shifting. Their thoughts start turning. And even if they never come back to admit it, you moved something. And now they can't unfeel it. That's how real your energy is. You rearranged something in their soul, and they're left wondering what changed. And to the enemies watching, you played yourself. You thought you could twist the truth, but now the very truth you tried to bury is rising in waves, and it's coming back for everything you tried to hide. You weren't just playing with a person. You were challenging a system that chose them. You weren't resisting the individual. You were standing in the way of the alignment, and the universe doesn't forget. So to the chosen ones, stop walking like you're just another one. You are not one of many. You are the wave they tried to silence. The shift they hoped wouldn't come. The energy they can't fake and can't replicate. You didn't show up to play small. You showed up to move oceans, to make still water run wild, to carry the truth into every corner where it was once denied. You didn't try to make waves. You are the wave. And now that they've felt it, they'll never forget the hit. Number 4, you move like truth with a timer. The loud ones perform, the precise ones prepare, and when they strike, it's surgical. They don't fear your words. They fear when you choose to speak, because they know you don't waste breath. You're not impulsive. You're intentional. You're not loud to be heard. You're quiet because you're calculating. And when your words finally come, they land, not for noise, for impact. That's why they flinch when you lock eyes. That's why their hands get fidgety when you sit in silence. You don't fill space just to feel in control. You let the tension build because you are the tension. The chosen ones don't speak often, but when we do, it's like cutting the cord on a lie someone's been living in. Calm, director, no fluff, and it leaves people breathless, not because we yelled, but because they never expected to be seen so clearly. See, in a world full of reaction, your restraint makes you unpredictable. And unpredictable truth? That's lethal. You don't chase chaos, you time your clarity. You strike with precision. You don't expose everything at once. You unravel it, layer by layer, until the lie stands naked in front of everyone. That's what makes them afraid of you. You're not emotional. You're exact. You don't come in swinging. You study. You sit still. You let them reveal themselves. And when you move, it's already checkmate. They call it tension because they don't want to call it truth. They call it drama because they don't want to face what you're exposing. But deep down, even they know you didn't come to fight. You came to correct. That's what justice looks like when it's carried by the chosen. It doesn't beg to be accepted. It doesn't wait for permission. It just walks in and rearranges everything. And to the chosen ones who still doubt their sharpness, stop softening your edges to be easier to accept. You weren't built to whisper what was meant to strike. You weren't born to blend in. You were built to cut through. When you feel that pull to stay silent, to observe, to wait, that's not weakness. That's divine precision. That's the universe loading your presence with timing, with accuracy, with weight. They fear that you might speak, because deep down they know you already saw everything. They just don't know when you'll choose to say it. And that uncertainty, it's enough to make liars unravel on their own. You don't even have to say much. A single sentence from you can shift an entire room. Why? Because you're not talking to be liked. You're speaking to be felt. You don't drop truth to stir the pot. You drop it because it needs to be known. You carry what others won't say, and that alone makes you different. But it also makes you dangerous to those who depend on distortion to survive. That's why they'll label you difficult, intense, confrontational, because they can't control what you might expose. They can't predict your timing. They can't escape your awareness, and they hate that they have to perform around you. Let them. Let them sweat in your silence. Let them stumble through lies, hoping you won't speak. Because you don't need to interrupt the show. You're the one who ends it. Clean, clear, undeniable. You're not chaotic. You're surgical. You're not emotional. You're exact. You're not random. You're a pattern breaker. And the streets? They know it. They feel it when you walk in. They look at you like a storm's about to start, and not because you're wild, but because you're inevitable. So here's your reminder. Precision is your gift. Timing is your armor. And silence? That's just the blade being sharpened. Let them underestimate you. Let them misread your quiet. Because when you move, it won't be for attention. It'll be for impact. And once you've spoken, no one forgets what was said. Not because you were loud, but because you were right. Number 5. You didn't ask to be the shield, you just refused to run. They weren't scared of what was being said. They were terrified of who finally said it without fear. You didn't wake up one day and decide to be the protector. That wasn't the goal. You weren't trying to be anyone's hero. You were just done watching people suffer in silence while everyone else looked away. You were tired of seeing lies win because truth had no one willing to stand beside it. So when the moment came, you didn't fold. You turned toward the fire, not because you felt brave, but because your spirit wouldn't let you turn your back. That's the difference. That's why you stand out. That's why they talk about you like you're the threat. Not because you're aggressive, but because you won't abandon the truth when it's most vulnerable. See, anyone can repost quotes. Anyone can talk loud when it's safe. But when things get real, when the air changes, when lies are flying, when silence becomes complicity, you're the one who stays standing. Even when you're shaking, even when no one backs you, even when the cost is your peace, your reputation, your place in the room. That's what made you the protector. Not some title, not a plan, but your refusal to stay silent when it counted. You stepped in, even when you weren't sure how it would end. You spoke up, not for credit, but because not speaking would have eaten you alive. You stood between the lie and the victim, and you didn't do it for applause. You did it because you knew you could take the hit. That's what they'll never understand. You didn't insert yourself. You answered the call no one else wanted to admit was ringing. And here's what people won't say out loud. They're not afraid of lies. They're afraid of what happens when someone like you shows up and refuses to let them breathe unchecked. You became dangerous not because you attack, but because you defend with precision. You became the line no one wants to cross because you're not fueled by ego, you're moved by justice. And that kind of energy, you can't fake that. You can't teach that. You either are that or you're not. And you are, whether you asked for it or not. But let's be honest, being the protector isn't glamorous. It's isolating, heavy. You lose people, you get labeled, you carry battles no one else sees. And some days you wonder, why me? Let me answer that. Because the universe doesn't choose people who want the title. It chooses those who are willing to carry the weight, even when no one is watching, even when it costs them everything, because it knows you won't fold. And let me remind you of this. When you protect truth, you protect future generations. When you stand up, you make space for others to rise behind you. What you're doing isn't just about now. It's about what won't happen to someone else because you didn't stay quiet. That's impact. That's legacy. That's chosen. And yes, they'll try to make you feel wrong for it. Like you're starting something, like you're too involved. But don't fall for it. That's just fear trying to make itself comfortable again. That's the system panicking because someone finally stood up and didn't blink. Let them panic. Let them twist the story. Let them call it drama. Because deep down, they know exactly what you are. You're the one who saw the fire and didn't flinch. You're the one who spoke when silence was the currency. You're the one who stood between truth and destruction and refused to move. You didn't sign up for it. You didn't ask for the weight, but you carry it like it's built into your bones. Because it is. And now, the streets know. Number 6. You didn't lead loud. You led real. Some speak to impress. The chosen ones move in silence and shift the whole structure. You didn't walk in trying to lead. You didn't flash credentials or beg for respect. You simply existed, real, alert, unmoved. And that alone made people pay attention. Because when you stepped into rooms that reeked of polished disrespect, you didn't just sit there and smile for comfort's sake. You noticed everything. The cruelty dressed as jokes. The passive-aggressive tone that hit like punches in velvet gloves. The fake apologies meant to shut people up, not make things right. Most people let it slide. You didn't. Not because you wanted a fight, but because you couldn't unsee what was happening. Because injustice doesn't always come loud. Sometimes it tiptoes in wearing a grin. And you called it out anyway. That's what makes you different. That's what makes you dangerous. You didn't make it about ego. You didn't blow up the room. But you said something, sharp, clear, and unforgettable. And that's all it took. Your words didn't echo. They landed. They stuck. They lingered in the back of people's minds long after you walked out. You didn't lead by shouting. You led by refusing to participate in the lie. That's what leadership really is. Not control, not dominance, not volume. It's presence. It's action when no one else moves. It's calling out the fake when everyone else laughs along. It's standing 10 toes down on the truth, even if it makes the whole room shift uncomfortably. That's why the streets respect you. That's why your name gets mentioned when conversations get real. Because you didn't just talk about what's right. You walked it without ever needing the spotlight. People remember that. They watch that. Even the ones who pretended not to hear you. Even the ones who stayed silent while you spoke. They remember. And when they need clarity, when they need someone who doesn't fold under pressure, they think of you. Because leadership isn't something you claim. It's something you prove. Moment by moment, word by word, decision by decision. And you proved it when it wasn't convenient, when no one clapped for it, when it would have been easier to look away and play safe. That's how we know you're the real one. But let's be real for a second. This path, it's heavy. Leadership by example hurts. Because sometimes the ones you protect are the first to turn on you. Sometimes the room you spoke truth into gets quiet. Not to process, but to isolate you. That's the cost. And you've felt it. But here's what you need to hear right now. Keep moving how you move. You weren't built to be liked. You were built to be followed when the noise dies down. And when people finally realize what leadership really looks like, not just performance, but protection, presence, and principle, they'll look your way. You are the blueprint they tried to ignore, the example they hoped wouldn't catch on, the reminder that integrity don't need an audience to stay intact. You led without a platform. You corrected without making it about you. And the energy you carry now, it walks into the room before you do. And the fake ones, they feel it. They know who you are. So let them call it drama. Let them label it too much. That's just fear trying to disguise itself as critique. Because the truth is, you didn't come to impress. You came to set a standard. And that's exactly what you did. Number 7, you moved different. Now the whole room feels it. They had the power, you had the influence, and in the end, it wasn't even close. They had their titles, their little positions, their status, but none of it mattered the moment you stood up, because the truth is, you never needed rank to shift the room. You were the shift. You didn't come in trying to take charge. You weren't trying to prove anything. You just saw what was wrong and refused to sit still while everyone else waited for the right moment. You became the moment. In your workplace, you checked someone who thought their position made them untouchable. They were so used to talking down to people, so used to no one pushing back, that when you stepped in calm, controlled, and direct, you shattered their illusion of control with one sentence. At home, it was that relative, the one who always crosses lines and hides behind just joking. And while others laughed nervously or looked away, you didn't. You shut it down, not for attention, not to be right, but because somebody had to. And you knew no one else would. And in your friend group, when everyone else conveniently forgot that one person, when they left them hanging, didn't defend them, didn't include them, you did. Quietly, firmly, without needing backup. That wasn't weakness. That was leadership in motion. You didn't need a platform to create a shift. You are the platform. You didn't post about it. You just lived it. And your influence? It spread like smoke in a closed room. Couldn't be ignored. Couldn't be stopped. Couldn't be faked. And that's why things changed when you moved. Why people sat up straighter. Why conversations adjusted. Why the temperature shifted the moment you spoke. Because while they were playing for comfort, you were moving for truth. You drew the line in the sand, not with force, but with conviction. And behind you, people started waking up. People who were silent before found their voice. People who were scared found a model. And the ones who were hiding behind charm and control, they got exposed. That's why you made enemies. Not because you were loud, not because you were aggressive, but because you told the truth in rooms built entirely on denial. And some of the people you confronted, they've never been held accountable in their lives. They built immunity around them like armor made of status and social protection. But your presence alone ripped that off them. Because when a chosen one walks in with clarity, there's no room left for pretending. You didn't humiliate them. You didn't disrespect them. You just told the truth, and their entire identity depended on no one ever doing that. So now, you walk around carrying both respect and resentment, admired by the real, hated by the fake. That's the cost of influence. That's the price of movement. You don't get both silence and power. You chose power, and it shows. But don't let the backlash fool you. That tension you feel, that discomfort, that weird distance that forms after you do the right thing. That's not rejection. That's confirmation. That's what it feels like to move the energy of a space just by being you. And some people won't clap for you. Some won't thank you. But watch them. They're walking different now. They think before they speak. They know what line not to cross. Not because you scared them, but because you woke something up in them they didn't even know was sleeping. You are influence in motion. A ripple that doesn't die at the edge. A presence that reshapes the atmosphere even after you're gone. That's who you are. Not because you asked to be, because you refused not to be. So let them say what they want. Let them call you too direct. Let them tell people you're difficult or intense. That's fine. You're not here to be easy. You're here to be effective. And the real ones, they feel it. They follow it. They become it. Because that's how chosen ones move. And the streets, they see it now, clear as day. Number 8. You didn't speak to be heard. You stood to be felt. The loudest one in the room wants attention. The real one. They shift the entire room without needing a word. You're not just another voice blending into the crowd. When you speak, everything pauses. The tone shifts. The air thickens. The ones who love to dominate the conversation suddenly quiet. Because when you open your mouth, it's not noise. It's weight. It's something the room has to deal with. You don't shout. You don't beg. You don't play social games to get applause. You stand in clarity, in truth, in presence. And that makes people more nervous than rage ever could. See, when the fake ones talk, they're looking to be liked. But when you talk, you're looking to expose what's been hiding. And that's why they flinch. You're not for sale. You're not impressed by empty praise. You see straight through manipulation and keep your soul intact. That alone, that's a threat. Not because you're violent, but because you can't be controlled. That's what unpredictability looks like when it's built on principle. You don't move with ego. You move with alignment. You don't chase power. You carry it. Quietly, unshakably, and for those still questioning themselves, still trying to shrink their presence to stay palatable, listen up. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not the problem. You're not too much. They're just reacting to a power they never expected you to own. They thought they knew how the story would play out. They thought you'd fold. Stay quiet, bow your head, laugh it off, stay in your lane. But then you stood, you spoke, you shifted the whole equation, and suddenly the entire vibe was off for them, because they were never ready for someone to call the thing what it actually is. No sugarcoating, no passive phrasing. Just real words, in real time, with real weight. You stood in your truth, and truth is a sword. Not to destroy, but to divide what's real from what's comfortable. And here's the part most people don't want to admit. You didn't stand for recognition. You stood because you couldn't live with yourself if you didn't. That's why the universe trusted you. Not because you were perfect, not because you had all the answers, but because you'd carry the truth even when it costs, even when it isolates you, even when it means losing what everyone else would fight to keep. You're not just here to comfort the wounded. You're here to warn the ones doing the wounding. You're here to say what others whisper, to hold the mirror steady when the room starts shaking, to carry the weight most people pretend doesn't exist. That's why they feel you, even when you're silent. That's why your name stays in rooms you haven't walked into yet. That's why they mimic your confidence while resenting your clarity. Because the truth follows you like a shadow. It speaks even when you don't. You are a threat, not because you try to be, but because you exist without compromise. You don't wear your values like accessories. You walk in them with every step. You lead without a title. You teach without preaching. You shift culture by simply not folding under it. And the wildest part? All you did was be who you are. No gimmicks, no strategy, just full alignment with what's real. And that's the most powerful thing you could ever bring to a world addicted to pretending. So, stand tall in it. Keep moving like every step is proof you didn't fold. Because it is. Because they watched. And now they know. You are the truth teller, the protector, the one who didn't fold, the chosen one. And the streets? Yeah, they know exactly who you are now. Number 9, you didn't judge them. You just refused to look away. You weren't staring them down. You were just seeing clearly, and they couldn't handle that kind of honesty. It's wild, isn't it? You don't raise your voice. You don't point fingers. You don't even flinch. But the moment you step into the room, they feel seen. Not the version they show off. Not the persona they've polished. The real them. The one they've been avoiding in the mirror for years. You didn't ask for that power, but it's built into your presence. You were never just in the room. You shifted it by existing in truth. Because when you carry that much alignment, people can't stay hidden. You don't expose them by calling them out. You expose them by simply standing still while they perform. You are the mirror they can't escape. They feel judged, but you never said a word. They feel tension, but you didn't bring any. They feel unsafe, not because you threatened them, but because your clarity reminds them what they've buried. That's why they talk sideways about you. That's why they avoid your eyes. That's why they'll twist your silence into arrogance, your peace into pride, your stillness into threat. Because here's the truth, you're not too much. You're just someone who doesn't pretend. And for people built on pretending, that's terrifying. You weren't looking at them sideways. You were just looking through them. And they felt it. They felt you see the manipulation behind the charm, the fear behind the control, the insecurity behind the performance. And that shook them, because no one else ever stayed long enough, or still enough, to see it that clearly. You didn't come to attack. You didn't even react. You revealed. And that's more powerful than any confrontation. Because once someone has seen themselves through you, they can't unsee it. They can try to reject you, laugh you off, avoid you. But deep down, that reflection follows them. Your presence lingers. Your clarity haunts the parts of themselves they hope no one would notice. That's your power. And yeah, it comes with consequences. You'll get misunderstood, mischaracterized, called cold, intense, dramatic, fake deep. But you don't move for approval. You move in alignment. So stop dimming your truth to make people feel safe in their distortion. Stop shrinking your clarity so others don't feel exposed. You were not built to coddle dysfunction. You were built to reflect it, clean, clear, and without apology. And for the chosen ones still doubting their effect, still wondering why people get so weird around you, so defensive, so distant after one conversation. It's because they saw themselves in you, and they weren't ready. They weren't ready to feel seen without performance, to be mirrored without warning, to be measured by something real, not by status, not by charm, not by noise, but by truth. You're not the problem. You're the reflection they weren't prepared for. And instead of facing it, they tried to avoid you. Let them. Let them dodge mirrors if they must. But don't you ever stop being one, because in a world that rewards illusion, your presence is correction. You didn't come to be comfortable. You came to be clear. And the streets, they know. They know who keeps it real, who doesn't fold, who sees everything and still stands tall. You, the mirror they can't escape, the reflection they never asked for, but always needed. So, if you've made it this far, it's not by accident. It's because something in this message was meant for you. The streets already know who you are, but now it's time you do too. You're not just witnessing the shift, you are the shift. Stand in that fully, walk in it loudly, and never fold. If this spoke to your spirit, hit that like, subscribe, and drop the number 77 in the comments to let the algorithm know more chosen ones need this energy. Share this with someone who's been too quiet for too long. Let's keep waking them up.